It was supposed to be a glamorous charity gala, a night of wealth and elegance under crystal chandeliers. The Montero Foundation was opening the doors of its gilded ballroom to raise funds for hospitals in impoverished regions. Amid champagne glasses and haute couture dresses, false smiles concealed true ambitions. Then a whisper cut through the elegant murmur of the party. Dr. Antonio Montero, owner of the largest private hospital network in the country, crossed the hall with firm steps towards the young pregnant woman who had just entered. In a matter of seconds, what should have been a celebration of charity transformed into a stage for public humiliation. But what no one knew that night was that the woman he was trying to intimidate was not just the wife of his troubled son. Helena Silva Montero carried within her not only a new life, but also the ancestral wisdom of a lineage of traditional healers that stretched back 5 generations. Beneath her appearance of fragility and submissiveness lay a strength that would soon forever change the balance of power within that family. Stay tuned, because this story will show you how true strength can hide in the most unlikely places, and how arrogance can be the greatest weakness, even of the most powerful. Observe how, behind luxurious mansions and imposing titles, empty hearts can exist, while true wealth is often found in calloused hands and ancient traditions. The Grand Hotel shone that gala night. Crystals reflected the golden light of hundreds of strategically placed candles. Imported white orchids adorned each table, their subtle fragrance mingling with the aroma of gourmet dishes and French perfumes. At the entrance to the main hall, a string quartet played Mozart, while the city's elite paraded their jewels and status. It was one of those nights when high society gathered to feign concern for the less fortunate, while competing to see who could make the most ostentatious donation. Dr. Antonio Montero, at 65 years old, maintained the impeccable posture of someone born to dominate. His tailor-made London tuxedo contrasted with his perfectly trimmed gray hair. The platinum watch on his wrist cost more than the annual salary of many of the waiters who served champagne as he passed. His eyes, however, revealed the calculating coldness of someone who had built an empire by taking down competitors. With each handshake, with each rehearsed smile, he reaffirmed his position at the top of the social ladder. Beside him, his son Carlos, heir to his empire, displayed an artificial smile and slightly unfocused eyes, the result of pills and expensive drinks. "Dad, Helena just arrived," Carlos murmured, leaning in discreetly. "I thought I made it clear that she should stay home tonight." Antonio's eyes hardened. "Her wedding is embarrassing enough as it is. We don't need her flaunting this pregnancy in front of all our guests." Across the room, Helena entered alone, wearing a simple yet elegant navy blue dress that gently hugged her 7-month pregnant belly. At 28, she possessed a discreet beauty that contrasted sharply with the overly made-up women around her. Her dark hair fell in natural waves over her shoulders, and her deep brown eyes revealed a keen intelligence. The daughter of traditional doctors from a small rural community, Helena had graduated with honors in medicine, specializing in integrative practices that combined modern scientific knowledge with ancestral African and indigenous wisdom. Her marriage to Carlos had resulted from a meeting during an international medical congress, where she had presented research on medicinal plants with pharmaceutical potential. What had begun as a love story quickly transformed into a controlling relationship, with Carlos gradually isolating her from her family and sabotaging her attempts to continue her research. Now pregnant and financially dependent, Helena navigated a world of appearances and power games, while secretly maintaining contact with her roots through the mansion's old housekeeper, Donna Zifa, who shared her cultural heritage. As Helena walked through the hall, she noticed the stares and whispers. She smiled politely at acquaintances, deliberately ignoring the expressions of surprise at her presence. Her hand occasionally touched the necklace of colorful beads hidden beneath her dress, a gift from her grandmother, a renowned healer, before she left for this marriage that was supposed to be her social ascension. "Never forget who you are," were her grandmother's words. "Our strength lies not in what we possess, but in what we know and what we can heal." Tension grew as Helena approached the head table. Carlos immediately grabbed a glass of champagne, drinking it in one nervous gulp before coldly greeting his wife. "I thought we had agreed that you would stay home tonight." "I don't recall agreeing to that," Helena replied gently. "The foundation is also part of the family that is now mine, and the baby I'm carrying is a Montero. I have as much right to be here as anyone else." Carlos's jaw visibly clenched, but before he could answer, Dr. Antonio approached, his smile barely reaching his eyes. Helena, what a pleasant surprise. His voice dropped to a sharp whisper. Although I believe that in your condition, rest would be more prudent than social events. Helena maintained a steady gaze, something rare among those who confronted the patriarch Montero. Dr. Antonio, as a doctor, I can assure you that my condition is perfectly healthy to participate in a charity event, especially one dedicated to maternal health, a topic that is particularly dear to me. The tense moment was interrupted by the arrival of Vanessa Cardoso, chief physician of one of the hospitals in the Montero network and a well-known admirer of Carlos. In her revealing red dress and calculated smile, she strategically positioned herself between Carlos and Helena. "Carlos, darling, the Japanese investors are eager to discuss that new pediatric wing," purred Vanessa, completely ignoring Helena. "Dr. Antonio, you should join us too. After all, we need brilliant minds in this conversation." The look of disdain he gave Helena made the message clear. You don't belong in this world. Carlos, visibly relieved by the interruption, immediately walked away with Vanessa, while Dr. Antonio remained, studying his daughter-in-law with disturbing intensity. "You know, Helena," he said, swirling the champagne glass between his fingers, "I've always wondered what Carlos saw in you besides a pretty face. Your little research into magical herbs hardly impresses in the world of serious medicine." The comment was calculated to hurt, to remind Helena of her position as an outsider in that world. But instead of recoiling, she felt a spark of something she had suppressed for too long, her true nature. "Dr. Antonio," he replied calmly, "have you ever stopped to wonder why your oncology clinics have such high treatment abandonment rates in peripheral regions?" The question caught the doctor off guard. His eyes narrowed dangerously. "I don't recall sharing this information with you." "She didn't share it. I researched it." Helena kept her voice soft, almost intimate, as if sharing a secret. "And I discovered that many patients abandon conventional treatments not for lack of resources, but for lack of cultural acceptance. When we ignore the beliefs and traditions of a people, we lose their trust." A few drops of wine fell onto the white sleeve of Antonio's tuxedo as his hand trembled slightly. For a moment, time seemed to freeze. The patriarch of the Montero family was rarely questioned, much less by an outsider who should feel grateful for having been admitted into his family. "You're very presumptuous," he hissed, the veneer of civility beginning to crack. "Perhaps Carlos is right about your place in this family." It was at that moment that Helena realized that everyone around her had fallen silent, forming an involuntary audience for the scene unfolding. Carlos and Vanessa watched from afar, he with an alarmed expression, she with a poorly disguised smile. "Dr. Montero," Helena continued, her voice now audible to those closest to her, "perhaps we could discuss how traditional healing practices could complement the treatments offered by your hospitals. Recent studies show that patients with adequate cultural support adhere better to protocols and have superior outcomes." Antonio's face flushed. He wasn't used to being challenged, especially in public and by someone he considered inferior. In a calculated move to humiliate him, he raised his voice. "My dear daughter-in-law seems to confuse medicine with superstition. Perhaps we should hear more about her magic potions and healing rituals." The comment elicited nervous laughter from some guests eager to please the powerful doctor. Helena felt the weight of their stares, the silent judgment, the expectation that she would shrink back and accept her place. But something had changed. The life growing within her seemed to infuse her with a strength that came from generations before her. "Actually," she replied with a calmness that surprised even herself, "I'd love to share. Perhaps I could start by explaining how the active principle of Artemisia annua, used for centuries in traditional Chinese medicine, revolutionized the treatment of malaria when it was finally recognized by Western science. Or maybe I'd prefer to discuss how the traditional healers in my community identified anti-inflammatory properties in plants that have only recently been validated in modern laboratories." A heavy silence fell over the group. Antonio Montero was not used to being confronted with facts that he could not easily dismiss. His face alternated between expressions of anger and discomfort. "That's ridiculous," he finally replied, but his voice had lost some of its authority. "This isn't the place for this kind of discussion." "On the contrary," came the reply from an unexpected voice. An elderly man with distinct features that betrayed his African origin approached the group. "Dr. Jaime Olorinfemi, a renowned international researcher and member of the WHO board, smiled gently. I believe that a foundation dedicated to global health would be exactly the place to discuss the integration of knowledge. Antonio's eyes widened with recognition. Dr. Olorunfemi was not only globally respected, but also an influential evaluator of international funding, exactly the kind of contact the Monteros were trying to cultivate that night. Dr. Olorunfemi, Antonio tried to regain his composure. I didn't know you knew my daughter-in-law. Actually, I didn't know him personally, replied the African doctor, turning to Helena with genuine interest. But I recognized his name from his published articles on ethnopharmacology. His work on the systematic documentation of traditional practices is precisely the type of research we are seeking to encourage. Helena felt a wave of emotion. Her articles, the very ones that Carlos had dismissed as academic pastimes and that Antonio had ridiculed, were being recognized by someone whose work she deeply admired. It's an honor, Doctor, she replied sincerely. Your work on integrated health systems was fundamental to my research. As the conversation unfolded, Antonio's face shifted from anger to something bordering on panic. His son, realizing the potential social disaster, quickly approached. Dr. Olorunfemi, Carlos interrupted, positioning himself between Helena and the African doctor. It's an honor to have you at our event. Allow me to show you the plans for our new international initiative. The older doctor smiled politely, but his eyes remained on Helena. Certainly, but I hope to continue this fascinating conversation with your wife later. Perhaps she can contribute valuable perspectives to your international projects. As Carlos led the distinguished guest away, he cast Helena a warning glance she knew well. Antonio, in turn, leaned closer to her, his voice a sharp whisper. I don't know what game you're playing, but know that you're no match for this family. I suggest you remember your place before you become expendable. With that, he turned away, leaving Helena alone in the middle of the resplendent hall. But instead of the familiar fear, she felt something different growing inside her. The certainty that this night had changed something fundamental. The baby moved in her womb, as if in confirmation. Are you all right? The gentle voice of Dona Zefa, who had observed everything from her discreet position as part of the event team, brought Helena back to the present moment. I am, Helena replied, surprised to realize she was telling the truth. In fact, I think I'm better than I've been in a long time. The old woman nodded, her wise eyes seeing beyond appearances. Remember what your grandmother always said. The strongest tree is the one that knows both the sun and the shade. Helena smiled, feeling the weight of the ancestral necklace against her skin, and the time for the tree to show its strength is coming. The days that followed the charity event brought subtle but profound changes to the dynamics of the Montero mansion. Helena, who had previously walked the luxurious corridors like a silent shadow, now carried with her a presence that could not be ignored. The encounter with Dr. Olorunfemi had awakened something that had been dormant, not only her professional confidence, but also her connection to the ancestral knowledge that ran in her veins. In her room, transformed into a private sanctuary, Helena began systematically organizing her old research. Notebooks filled with notes on medicinal plants, healing rituals, and the integration between traditional practices and modern medicine were rescued from boxes that Carlos had relegated to the basement. With the silent help of Dona Zefa, she transformed a discreet corner of the mansion's garden into a small medicinal herb garden. Each plant chosen not only for its therapeutic properties but also for the cultural significance it carried. Antonio Montero, for his part, observed this change with growing distrust. After decades building a medical empire based on cutting-edge technology and lucrative pharmaceutical treatments, the presence of this primitive element in his own home deeply disturbed him. Even more disturbing was the news his assistant had brought him. Dr. Olorunfemi had expressed a specific interest in learning more about Helena's work, mentioning possible international partnerships. This is unacceptable, Antonio declared at a family meeting convened in his office. The room, decorated with framed diplomas and medical awards, was his territory of power. Helena is overstepping all acceptable boundaries. Carlos, sitting uncomfortably in a leather armchair, seemed torn between pleasing his father and a growing unease with the situation. Dad, maybe we could use this to our advantage. If Dr. Olorunfemi is really interested, we could incorporate some multicultural element into one of the smaller hospitals. It would be good for our image. Antonio gave his son a look of disdain. You still don't understand, do you? It's not just about image. If we start giving credibility to these alternative practices, we question the very foundation of our business model. But integrative medicine is gaining worldwide recognition, Carlos argued. Surprising himself with this unexpected defense, many leading hospitals are incorporating complementary approaches. Since when did you become an expert on medical trends? The sarcasm in Antonio's voice cut like a blade. You can barely manage the hospital I put in your charge without creating scandals. He stood up, walking to the window that offered a panoramic view of the city. No, we need to deal with this definitively. After the baby is born, we will offer Helena a choice. Either she abandons this ridiculous research and assumes the appropriate role as the wife of a Montero, or we will arrange a discreet divorce that will leave her with nothing. What none of the men noticed was Dona Zefa's silent presence outside the half-open door, her ancient eyes absorbing every word, every threat. That same afternoon, while Helena was organizing her herbs in the garden, the housekeeper approached with a teapot of lemon balm tea. "My dear," he said softly, serving tea in delicate cups that contrasted with his hands, calloused from decades of work, "the time has come for you to learn the true story of this house." For 2 hours, under the gentle late afternoon sun, Dona Zefa shared secrets she had kept for over 4 decades of service to the Montero family. How Antonio's first wife, Carlos's mother, had been gradually silenced and isolated when she began to question the ethical practices of the hospitals. How her nervous problems had been manufactured through controlled medication administered without her knowledge. And, most significantly, how the Montero empire had been built not only through medical innovation, but also through the systematic appropriation of traditional knowledge from indigenous and Afro-Brazilian communities, patenting compounds that had been used for generations. "Why are you telling me this now?" Helena asked, feeling the weight of the revelation. "Because I saw the same look in his eyes," the old woman replied, with an ancient sadness in her voice. "The same look he had when he decided that Mrs. Isabella had become a problem to be solved, and because, unlike her, you carry something she had lost, her connection to her roots, to a knowledge he can steal but never truly possess." Helena felt a shiver run down her spine. "What should I do?" Dona Zefa smiled, a smile that held the wisdom of many generations. "You've already started, girl. Continue, but now do it with purpose and protection." In the following days, Helena intensified her efforts on 2 fronts. Publicly, she resumed contact with academic colleagues, sharing ideas and rebuilding professional bridges that Carlos had systematically destroyed. Secretly, with Dona Zefa's guidance, she began meticulously documenting not only her own research, but also the questionable practices of the Montero hospitals, especially those related to the exploitation of traditional knowledge. The inevitable confrontation came during a seemingly normal dinner at the Montero mansion. Helena, now 8 months pregnant, had invited Dr. Olorunfemi for an informal meal, supposedly to discuss possibilities for collaboration. Antonio, unable to refuse the presence of such an influential guest, had instructed Carlos to monitor every moment of the interaction. The mansion's dining room, with its crystal chandelier and antique silverware, became the stage for a clash of worldviews. Dr. Olorunfemi, elegant in his traditional suit with African print details, brought with him not only academic prestige, but also a presence that emanated ancestral dignity. "Helena told me about her interest in integrating traditional knowledge into hospital protocols," commented Antonio, his voice deliberately cordial as waiters filled wine glasses. "An idea, interesting, though somewhat romantic." Dr. Olorunfemi smiled serenely. "There's nothing romantic about superior clinical results, Dr. Montero. The data is quite objective. Data can be interpreted in many ways," Antonio retorted with a tense smile. "As doctors, we must be skeptical of correlations that may not indicate causation." "It's interesting that you mention skepticism," Helena interjected gently, "considering that the new diabetes medication that the Montero hospitals are promoting is based on a compound traditionally used by Xingu communities for centuries." A heavy silence fell over the table. Antonio's face stiffened as Carlos choked on his wine. "You seem very well informed about our pharmaceutical developments," Antonio replied with calculated coldness. "Actually," Helena continued, keeping her voice calm despite her racing heart, "I'm well informed about the original source of this knowledge. My grandmother participated in the first ethnobotanical records of that region in the 1970s, before the patents were registered, by companies partnered with the Montero hospitals. Dr. Olorunfemi observed the interaction with growing interest. This is precisely the type of ethical issue that our new international committee is investigating: the appropriation of traditional knowledge without proper recognition or compensation. Antonio carefully placed the silverware on the plate, his expression now a mask of control. I believe my daughter-in-law is confusing very different issues. Our laboratories develop synthesized molecules that may have similarities to natural compounds, but they are patentable scientific creations. Really? Helena's question hung in the air like a challenge. Then perhaps you could explain why Dr. Mendes' original research records, which documented the traditional use of these compounds, mysteriously disappeared from the university archives shortly after he refused an offer to buy the rights to his research. Carlos visibly paled, while Antonio maintained an outward calm that contrasted sharply with the storm in his eyes. "I'm curious," interjected Dr. Olorunfemi, addressing Helena, "about how you propose that traditional knowledge be properly integrated into modern medicine, respecting both scientific rigor and cultural propriety." It was the moment Helena had been waiting for. With clarity and precision, she outlined her vision: a model of genuine partnership between medical institutions and traditional communities, with protocols for informed consent, participation in the benefits of discoveries, and explicit recognition of the origins of knowledge. As she spoke, her voice grew stronger and more convincing. It wasn't just the carefully prepared plan, but years of suppressed research finally finding expression. Dr. Olorunfemi occasionally nodded in approval, asking questions that demonstrated a deep understanding of the complexities involved. Antonio Montero, realizing he was losing control of the situation, attempted one last maneuver. "Helena has fascinating ideas, no doubt, but I fear that her current condition, both the pregnancy and her emotional fragility, may be affecting her practical judgment." The comment, calculated to discredit Helena, hung in the air for a tense moment. It was then that she did something unexpected. With deliberate calm, she pulled a small flash drive from her pocket. "Dr. Montero, this device contains digitized copies of Dr. Mendes's original notebooks, which he prudently entrusted to my grandmother before his convenient accident. It also contains correspondence detailing how traditional communities were systematically deceived into sharing knowledge that was later patented without any acknowledgement." Antonio's face lost all color. Carlos stared in astonishment, torn between filial loyalty and a growing understanding of the extent of his father's manipulations. This is absurd," stammered Antonio, momentarily abandoning his usual eloquence. "Slander and blackmail, is that what you're trying to do?" Helena shook her head slowly. "No, Dr. Montero. I'm offering a choice, a path to redemption." With the same clarity with which she had presented her vision, Helena now laid out her proposal. The Montero hospitals could lead an ethical revolution in the pharmaceutical industry, establishing new standards of collaboration with traditional communities. Past practices would be recognized as historical errors to be corrected through compensatory funds directed to community health programs. Instead of scandal and disgrace, there would be renewal and pioneering spirit. "This is extortion," Antonio finally managed to articulate, although his voice had lost its characteristic authority. "No, Dr. Montero," Dr. Olorunfemi interjected in a grave voice. "It's a responsibility, and I might add, an extraordinary opportunity." He turned to Helena with evident admiration. "Your proposal perfectly echoes the type of reform our international committee is preparing to recommend. Hospitals that anticipate these changes will be in a position of global leadership." Antonio Montero, for the first time in decades, found himself truly cornered. His calculating mind was already evaluating the options, the costs, the potential benefits of each path, and surprisingly, he was beginning to glimpse possibilities he had never considered before. Carlos, observing the subtle transformation in his father's expression, found voice for what had remained unspoken for years. "Dad, what if there really was a better way? Not just for business, but for what we've always claimed to be our mission, healing people." The moment of silence that followed was profound, as if time itself held its breath. Finally, Antonio Montero did something no one in the room expected. He laughed. A short, dry, but genuine laugh. "You know, Helena, he said with a note of reluctant respect in his voice. "You remind me of someone I knew a long time ago. Someone who also refused to accept the world as it is." "His first wife," Helena replied softly. "Carlos's mother." Antonio's eyes widened in genuine surprise. Carlos straightened up in his chair, his attention completely captured. "How could you know?" "Some stories survive, Dr. Montero, even when we try to bury them, especially in the memories of those we don't care about." The following weeks witnessed a gradual but profound transformation in the Montero mansion. The previously locked room containing the belongings of Isabella, Antonio's first wife, was reopened. Carlos, confronted with the truth about his mother's past, not an emotionally unstable woman as he had always been told, but a brilliant doctor whose ethical concerns had been systematically silenced, began a painful process of re-evaluating his own life. Helena, now in the final weeks of her pregnancy, became the unexpected catalyst for a reconciliation that no one could have foreseen. In long conversations in the office she now shared with Antonio, she helped structure a new model for the Montero hospitals, one that not only incorporated traditional knowledge with respect and recognition, but also revisited corporate practices to align profit with genuine purpose. Dr. Olorunfemi, impressed by the transformation he witnessed, offered the Montero hospitals the opportunity to be the pilot project for an international program of culturally sensitive integrative medicine. The public announcement of this initiative, with Helena as Director of Research and Cultural Integration, generated waves of surprise and admiration in the medical community. For Antonio Montero, the journey was complex and often painful. Decades of controlling and manipulative habits didn't disappear overnight. There were moments of relapse, of resistance, of attempts to return to old patterns. But each time this happened, he found in Helena not an adversary or accuser, but a firm presence that guided him back to the new path they were building together. "You know what's most difficult?" he confessed one afternoon, as they reviewed together the statutes of the new foundation that would build bridges between modern medicine and traditional knowledge. "It's not changing the business model or facing the legal consequences of past decisions. It's looking back and seeing how much time and energy I wasted fighting forces that could have been allies." Helena nodded understandingly. "My grandmother used to say that the strongest river is not the one that cuts through the rock by force, but the one that learns to flow around it, transforming obstacles into part of its own course." On the eve of the baby's birth, a discreet ceremony was held in the mansion's gardens. At Helena's request, and to the surprise of many, it was a celebration honoring ancestral traditions of welcoming a new life. Donna Zefa, now officially recognized not only as a housekeeper, but as a guardian of traditional wisdom, led rituals that had been practiced for generations in her community of origin. What most impressed those present, including renowned doctors and hospital administrators, was the active participation of Antonio Montero. The patriarch, who months earlier would have ridiculed such practices as primitive superstitions, now observed with genuine respect, occasionally asking questions that demonstrated a real interest in understanding the deeper meanings of the rituals. Carlos, for his part, had begun his own journey of healing. Confronted with the truth about his past and inspired by the transformation he witnessed in his father, he had begun to re-examine his choices and behaviors. His relationship with Helena, previously marked by control and resentment, gradually evolved into a partnership based on mutual respect. "I don't think I ever really knew you," he confessed one night, while helping Helena organize the baby's room. "Or maybe I didn't want to know you because it would be easier to fit you into the role I believed was right for a wife." Helena smiled gently, acknowledging the sincere effort that admission represented. It's never too late to truly get to know each other, or ourselves. When the moment of birth finally arrived, it was Donna Zefa who first held the child, a strong girl with curious eyes who seemed to observe the world with ancient wisdom. In a decision that symbolized the complete transformation of the family, the baby was named Isabella Zefa, honoring both Carlos's forgotten mother and the woman who had preserved the truth through decades of imposed silence. The scene in the maternity ward of the main hospital in the Montero network was remarkable for its simplicity and authenticity. Antonio Montero, the powerful patriarch whose word was once unquestionable law, now held his granddaughter with almost fearful reverence, like someone receiving a second chance he didn't believe he deserved. "She has her own eyes," he murmured, more to himself than to those present. "The same eyes that saw right through me." Helena, observing the scene from the hospital bed, felt a wave of emotion that transcended the physical exhaustion of childbirth. It wasn't just the natural cycle of a new life beginning, but the completion of a much larger circle, of suppressed truths finally coming to light, of ancestral knowledge reclaiming its place, of power being transformed into purpose. 6 months after Isabella's birth, the transformation of the Montero hospitals had progressed in a way that few would have believed possible. The Integrative Medicine Pilot Project, led by a joint team of conventional doctors and traditional medicine practitioners, was showing impressive preliminary results, especially in treatment adherence rates in communities previously resistant to hospital care. At an international health conference, Antonio and Helena Montero jointly presented the results of these first few months, highlighting not only the successes but also the challenges and lessons learned. The honesty with which Antonio addressed past mistakes and the humility with which he acknowledged the wisdom he had previously dismissed impressed even the most skeptical critics. True medical progress, he concluded in his speech, comes not only from new technologies or medications, but from a broader and more inclusive vision of what it means to heal, from recognizing that wisdom can come from places that our arrogance prevented us from seeing. While the audience applauded, Helena observed the man beside her, no longer the arrogant tyrant she had known, but someone in a continuous process of transformation. Not a saint or an instant hero, but a complex human being confronting his own legacy and choosing day after day a different path. In the front row, Dona Zefa held little Isabella, her old eyes shining with tears of gratitude for the circle that was finally being completed. Beside her, Dr. Olorunfemi watched with serene satisfaction, aware that he was witnessing not just a personal or institutional transformation, but a small yet significant step in healing much deeper historical wounds. The epilogue to this story took place a year after that gala night that had started it all. Once again, the Grand Hotel shone with crystal lights and soft music, but the event now celebrated the launch of the Isabella Foundation, dedicated to preserving and integrating traditional medical knowledge around the world. On the main stage, side by side, were 3 generations. Antonio Montero, still imposing but now with a dignity that came not from intimidation, but from genuine respect. Helena, carrying little Isabella in her arms, and Dona Zefa, finally publicly recognized as the guardian of a lineage of knowledge as valuable as any framed diploma on the walls of the Montero hospitals. Our journey, Helena told the attentive crowd, is a reminder that true wisdom rarely resides in just one place or tradition. It lies in dialogue, in mutual respect, in the recognition that every system of knowledge, whether from the most modern university or the oldest oral tradition, has something vital to offer. As she spoke, her eyes met Antonio's. In that shared gaze was the silent recognition of a universal truth, that the deepest transformation comes not from defeating an enemy, but from transforming an adversary into an ally. That true victory lies not in humiliating the powerful, but in helping them redirect their power to heal rather than control. And perhaps most importantly, that within each of us, no matter how hardened by years of arrogance or how wounded by experiences of oppression, lies the possibility of change, of growth, of finding a way back to our shared humanity. As little Isabella reached out her curious hands toward the bright lights above, her gesture seemed to capture the essence of the journey they had undertaken, always reaching for something higher, always seeking more light.